All right, with that said, I would like to go ahead and bring Shiva on board here. Give me 1 second, if you will. Shiva, I am now passing the presenter ability to you. You should be able to go ahead and turn on your screen and...
Hello.
Hello, fantastic. So making sure everything worked for you.
Hey.
I will go ahead and stop sharing, and the show is yours, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles. Let me find a way to share my screen. Yeah. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yep, you're good.
All right. So yeah, just to get started, I wanted to really introduce myself. My name is Shiva. I'm a senior technical marketing engineer here at Palo Alto Networks. I primarily look into the hero of the day, which is Panorama. And I also look into other stuff like software firewalls and so on and so forth. But my primary ownership is with Panorama. Today, we are going to talk about Panorama templates, try to understand them a little bit. I figured that for this session, Panorama being such a old timer, it's almost like a friend, like an old reliable friend that always irritates you quite a bit, but always has your best interests at heart. So I just thought it would be good to dive into how Panorama templates came into being, how the templates evolved over time, what were the use cases, and what use cases made us evolve at each point of time, try to understand some of the problems and how they were solved. And then at the end of the day, then we can go on and sort of have a look into the a demo as well, right? So right off the bat, let's get started. Yeah. So yeah, what we'll learn today is try and understand why we went with Panorama. What is the primary goal and vision of Panorama? How templates and stacks and came into being. What is the template reusability or reusability as a term that we use a lot? How we can override template values at what levels, and maybe I'll also share a couple of tips and best practices that we should follow while using templates. All right. So whenever we think about Panorama, I've been looking into Panorama for a little over a year now, and what I have realized that the vision for Panorama as such, or any management platform from Palo Alto Networks, has always been to deliver a consistent security posture at scale. Now, there are two important things to note over here, right? The first one is a consistent security posture. Panorama was never about managing firewalls. It was about managing security, the security of your network, right? And the term consistent here plays a big part of how actually Panorama has evolved over the years. The next point over here is delivering the same thing at scale, because as Palo Alto scaled, our customers scaled. Customers bought more firewalls, and there always was a need, to scale Panorama to manage the security at that scale, right? And to deliver a consistent security posture at scale became the theme around which the whole product has evolved. Being consistent also mattered in terms of the user experience as well. So from the get-go, Panorama was always about delivering a consistent user experience. The way which, if you log into a firewall today, the web UI that we talk about, and if you log into a Panorama today, you would basically see the same UI, UX. There will be subtle differences, like I've just pointed out over here. Like we have the PAVM, which is our software firewall that we see on top over here. you get almost exactly the same number of tabs. The only subtle difference is we have two new terms called device groups and templates. And then we have a separate panorama tab, which is basically what the admins, the super admins, will be able to see and basically handle how panorama should be behaving at any point of time. But let's take a step back. What are these device group and templates? Around 7 or 8 years ago, around 2018 timeframe, we launched something, or we released something called Panorama Shareable Configuration. Right? As part of Panorama Shareable Configuration, we introduced device groups and templates. Right? Now, the theme over here was always shareability or reusability. The reason why we put policies and objects in device groups and then network and device configuration under templates is a very interesting one. As we understand, policies and objects are always about how the firewall should, what kind of action a firewall should take on the traffic that is, transiting through the firewall, right? We basically define the configuration and also the associated configuration of the policies that will be, that basically will define what kind of action should be taken on the traffic that is being inspected by the firewall. Whereas if we take a look at the network and device configuration, it is more about how a firewall should behave when placed in a certain situation or in a certain location, right? And that is how we segregated these two concepts of device group and templates. And considering what kind of configuration it is, we decided that the way we will share the configuration within device groups and within templates will be completely different. Initially, when we launched it, we had the firewalls being associated with device groups and then templates, right? So device group had always had a hierarchy, in the sense we had a shared device group up top, and then we will have child device groups which will be inheriting from the shared device group. But we are not here to talk about the templates. We are not here to talk about the device groups. We are here to talk about the templates, right? So let's take a look at how initially templates came into being. So initially, like I said, firewalls were always associated with templates, but this more or less created that we have to go ahead and create one template per firewall, which means we cannot reuse any of the configuration. We always have to have redundant configuration across all the templates if required. More or less, like if you have certain base configuration, like your login banner or your authentication profiles, admin roles, and so on and so forth, those will be redundant across almost all the templates, right? And if you had to make a change to any of these profiles, you'll have to go and change every template out there. Now that was a concern, right? Obviously, we had proliferation of templates as well. It was either that, or we go over to the firewall and override it locally on the firewall, which was undesirable and completely opposed to orchestration of security. So in order to solve this problem, what we went ahead and did was we introduced template stacks. So template stacks initially were just containers, right? They were just stacks where we could place our template configuration within the stack, and it would be a layered approach, layered hierarchy, where the templates at the top will basically override all the configuration which in the templates preceding them. This was good, but now we could reuse some of the templates, but then we could still associate firewalls with either templates or template stacks, right? And this also led to further proliferation of templates and template stacks. So basically one template stack per firewall, because if there are customized configuration like your IP addresses, for example. If we have to have separate IP addresses for each interface, they would have to be separate templates. And again, this was absolutely not desirable because again, that would lead to redundant configuration. Although we had some reusability, but there is still a scope for more improvement. So how we improved on that was we went ahead and there was another problem as well. Before I talk about the improvement, there was another problem with the stacks. So if we stack two templates, like given example over here, we define a local admin A that is associated with admin role 1. And we have a template B where we have a local admin B, but that is not associated with any admin role. But we would like to associate that with admin role 1, right? If we add template A and B together into a stack, that will add both admin A and admin B into the stack. And it will also add the admin role 1 into the stack, but only admin A will be associated with admin role 1. Admin B will not have any admin role at all. This was a curious problem that we realized needs to be solved. So then we took the two problems, this one as well as this one, and we tried to resolve it in two ways. The first one was introducing config of reusability, where we introduced a change in default behavior that the firewalls can only be associated with template stacks. The firewalls could not be associated with individual templates anymore, right? And second, we allowed the editing of template stacks. So if at a template stack level, we want to edit it and make sure that admin B can be associated with the admin role 1, we could do that now. So this was one aspect of how we solved one of the problems, and this was really a big change because it allowed for a lot of flexibility when it came to using both templates and template stacks. There was still one problem though. How do we ensure, if we go back to this problem, we could override the IP addresses or customizable configuration, which is specific, exclusive to firewalls? We still would have to define them or override them at the stack level, which still means that we would need one stack per firewall, right? Or else, again, we have to go ahead and override on the firewall, which again defeats the purpose. So for that purpose, what we did was we introduced something called variables, right? Variables, how we introduced them, where we could just go ahead and define a variable within a template, right? And assign a default value to it. And when we add them all into a stack, we could assign different values to different stacks or different devices or even different templates, right? So when we associate this stack to a firewall, we could define for firewall 1, this variable should have the value 1.1.1.1. For firewall 2, it can be different. For firewall 3, it can be different. So without variables, the situation over here would be 4 templates and 3 template stacks for 3 firewalls, right? That has now, with variables, come down to just 2 templates and 1 template stack. And this is a very, very, very basic. I mean, I'm just giving an example. You can assume how big of problem it would be if a user would have to manage 100 or 500 firewalls, using the configuration of 500 firewalls with Panorama. So being able to reduce the number of templates and template stacks and allow for reuse of this configuration has been the consistent theme from a template perspective, from device group perspective as well, but we're talking about templates here. So now, if we have to take a look at where template variables variables can be configured at two levels. One is at the template level, and the other one at the template stack level. At the template stack level, you could actually import in the variables in bulk, so that you can define multiple variables in one go. Now, these variables can be modified at multiple levels. When I say modified, if you are actually modifying it at the same level where it was created, then it's just a typical edit. But if you are modifying the variable, the value of the variable at a higher level, for example, at the template stack or at the device level, it's basically called overriding, right? So assume that I am defining a value at the template level. I could go to the template stack level and override that configuration to make sure that for a particular firewall, this is the value I want to have. Now, that template can be used in a different template stack and can have a completely different value at the template stack level. But again, the problem over there is in that case, we can associate only a set group of firewalls or one firewall per template stack. When we introduce variables, if we can override the variables at the template stack level or even the managed device level, that gives a whole lot of flexibility to us. For example, if we can assign multiple variables to all of the interface IP addresses, that allows us the flexibility to use less number of templates per template stack. That is reduced overhead of managing multiple templates and multiple configurations. There has always been a problem around how do people manage so many variables, so many templates, stacks and templates, and so on and so forth, especially with the customers who are managing a large number of firewalls. And to that problem, it is always about keeping track of where a certain configuration has been defined and where it has been overridden. And all of these changes that we have brought in has ensured that any kind of change that we do, it is always focused on Panorama itself, and one does not need to deviate away from other Panorama. Now, I'll just move to right now. When I came to template overriding, we have now come to the state that we are at the moment. So I would just like to quickly move to a demo of showing you how and where this kind of configuration is, and possibly also share some tips. Right? So give me 1 minute so that I can stop sharing and share the video once again.
Yeah, no problem, Shiva. One of the comments that came through while you're getting ready is that Raphael made the comment, the issue that I have with variables is when you're troubleshooting, you can't see the IPs or values quickly. It would be nice to be able to see the value and maybe have a symbol to show that the value is from a variable.
Okay.
So just something to keep in mind. Maybe you might be demonstrating that possibly for all we know. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. For some reason, I am not able to do that. Give me a second.
Well, this tends to happen. We always get issues with live presentations. So while Shiva's dealing with his issues there, I'll just throw it out to the group again. I mean, if you have other questions, please go ahead and throw them into the chat. Obviously, Shiva just had to drop for a moment here. While he comes back, he's having issues with permissions or whatnot, I suspect. So our apologies on this. We'll have him back and up and going in just a moment here. Got some replies coming here. Chris is saying this would be helpful for me also as it would simplify data collection for audits. That's actually a really good point too. Yeah. Having the traceability and having the ease of proof of what IP address is being used when and where. That's a great idea. Great point. So as we are waiting for Shiva to come back online here, And here he is. We'll bring him back online. All right, Shiva, you should be ready to go. You are currently muted, just so you were aware.
Sorry about that.
No worries. It happens sometimes. I was just chatting with the people too while we were waiting for you, so I'll let you take back over.
Okay. All right. So I hope people can see the panorama that I am demoing.
Yes, we can see it. Yeah.
All right. So let's move to the panorama tab, and I have the templates already. The menu item for templates already open. I've created a couple of templates, template stacks. Right now, over here, adding a template is fairly straightforward. Right, we just enter the name and we are done. But a template stack, on the other hand, has a lot of information. Just for example, I can give you one of the test labs that we have created. So over here, if I open up any of these template stacks, this will give you a good view into what we can achieve with template stacks. One is we can define how many, what would be the default VSys. Now, VSys is the virtual systems. As we know, a firewall can have multiple virtual systems. We can assign what the default VSys would be when we associate a firewall to a template stack. Second thing, small thing, is the moment a firewall connects to a template stack, we can automatically push content, if it is a software device or a ZTP firewall as well, right? So that is another tweak that we have introduced. We can also define what user ID profile, or whether this template stack or the firewall will connect to the cloud identity engine. And here is where we define what templates are there. We could also associate the firewall over here directly, but I'm sure you already knew that, right? So this is a slightly more, larger view into template stack. But what we actually want to see over here is, let's take a look at, I'll not get into the variables yet. So over here, I have opened the template stack at the moment, right? So let me open the template. So this is a standard configuration that we have. I have defined two interfaces over here. But the moment I change the view into the stack, you'll notice that a green icon comes here, which basically goes to indicate that the only way I can, change this at this point, this has been inherited from the template. The only way I can change this at this point is if I would decide to override the template configuration. So when I clicked on override, it opened up this pop-up, and I could go ahead and say make it a static change, which it clearly indicates that I'm making a change on the firewall. So another thing is, if I just click on, say, this one, now when I clicked on enable SD-WAN, this changed to orange, which indicates that I'm overriding that particular configuration. Now, I would like to show you. So, for example, this is 811, and I have assigned the type as static. Of course, I'll not be saving these changes, but curious thing to show is when I click on add, right? Although I already have defined these objects. Now, these objects are actually coming from the device groups, right? These are addresses that I have already saved in the shared scope. But come at the bottom of the page, we have a variable, right? When we click on a variable, it allows me to provide a name, say test IP. I think test IP already exists. Something, right? So blah. And I go ahead and define IP net mask. And just like that, I can go ahead Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, variables should always begin with the $sign, and that was what it was complaining about. I could go ahead and click OK, and that would create this template, this variable. But this, because I have the template stack opened, this is the level at which the variable would be created. Let me hit cancel and go back to the template. Right. So when I come to the template and click on ETH11 over here, I could basically make the same changes. I can go ahead and define a variable here, but this would be at the template level, not at the template stack level. So this is something that we always need to be very clear on, is where we decide to create these templates or create these variables, at which level we are creating them. And if we want to actually go ahead and override them, we have to clearly understand what the impact would be, right? So for example, if I create a variable at the template level, obviously you give a default value to it, or you could just go ahead and create this. But we definitely would need to define a value for it at one of the bottom higher layers, right? So let me hit on cancel over here. I already have a couple of variables. So the next thing which I wanted to show you over here is when we go on to the templates page under the Panorama tab, we can manage all the variables over here itself. So assume that I go back over here, I create a template, right? I'll not go ahead and commit it, but let me go ahead and create it. Let's just say I create a variable. It's going to be test IP var, and let me not add any default value to it. Okay, so I've added this, right? Let's go ahead and click OK. So immediately, as you see, under IP address, there is a variable added, right? Now, if I go to the templates page under the Panorama tab, and I go to the GCP template and click on manage, that variable comes on over here. Since I did not define a default value, that value is not shown over here. Now, I could create a bunch of variables in this template, and all of them would be listed here automatically. The same thing if I go and I can just go ahead and clone this multiple times. If I go to the template stack and hit on manage, again that variable comes down over here. I can override the value over here at the stack level, and the stack will have all the variables from all the templates that have been added to the template stack. I could go ahead and override each of those values over here. Excuse me, and that would define what values would be pushed to the firewall, right? Another thing which I also mentioned was the ability to import the variables in bulk. So standard way of doing it is we could export the sample. I open this, let's just say I open it in Notepad. Yeah, so this is a standard exported configuration. I could go ahead and make changes and then import the same thing back, and then I would have imported the variables in bulk that would be assigned to any of those firewalls, right? Now, the other thing that we could also do, overriding at the next level, is if we go to the summary and we go down to GCP firewall, just move to the right for a bit. And if you see here, we have variables over here as well, right? We click on variables. It asks for whether you want to clone it. I say, no, I don't need to do that. As you can see from the stack, this variable has come up over here, right? Now, click on this. I can override the values right over here. as well, right? So these are the multiple levels at which you can override the values of the variables, which means, and there was a question about how do I see what values are defined. We can get the values right over here. I have not committed this change, so possibly it will not come. But if we click on this, yeah, it shows value not found, but it will basically get the value that is actually on the device. It will list all of them over here, whatever variables we are using, right? So like I mentioned, right, at each of these layers, we have provided the flexibility to go ahead and make changes. There have been a lot of cases where users would like to customize the variables in a way that it applies to each firewall, but they do not want it to, they don't want to go and override the template values on the firewall itself locally. So this is a perfect way to do that. We could either do it at the template stack level so that you can manage everything within the templates. It also obviously allows for export and import so that you can manage these values in bulk. But if you want to get focused attention on each of the variables one by one, then while also looking at the actual values on the firewall, you could do that under Manage Device Summary. There's one last thing I did want to show you, and that is not in this tab. It is actually under device groups. So if I go to the device groups over here, we have the option for using reference templates. So assume, excuse me, assume that you have defined or you have created some zones in your template configuration, zone A, zone B, and these zones you would like to use in your security policies. But how do the device groups or how do the security policies know where to get these zones from? So that is where you would add the reference templates over here so that the device group will immediately understand what to pull from these templates so that it is available for configuration within the policies or objects tab. All right. So that's about it. And if if there are any questions, I would take them. I hope this was useful information.
Yeah, as it turns out, we actually do have quite a few questions, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
The first one coming from Andrew is, I'm wondering if there is an official best practice on setting HA settings via variable or template, or should this be configured on the box? One of the people said, Brian responded with his previous PA sales engineers recommended to do local overrides for HA for his setup. Is that a best practice, or is that just on a case-by-case basis?
No, so doing an override on the firewall directly locally is not recommended. That is obviously not what we want to achieve with Panorama. The best way to make those changes, just give me a second, I'll just move it to the end. So the best way to make these changes would be at the managed device, like I showed you, make the changes over here so that those changes are impacted directly on the firewall from here, right? If you want to make any changes, this is the DC firewall.
Even for an HA configuration?
Yes, if you actually want to implement that at a firewall level, this is the best place to go about it. Making the change, overriding the values on the firewall will actually make sure that that particular configuration then is not managed from the template itself on the firewall. So any change, even if you make the change on Panorama next time, it is actually result in a push failure because that particular value is now overridden. Now, you would, in order to resolve that push failure, you would need to force template values, which will create a bunch of, again, it will bring your control back to the template stack, right? But from a configuration perspective, the whole reason why this flexibility has been provided at the device level is so that you do not have to go to the device itself to override any of this configuration. You can do that right over here. Hope that answered the question. Yeah.
Okay. The next question we had from Don is, are there rules when you should not configure at the template stack level? He's run into this issue in the past, apparently. Are there exceptions to the rule, I guess, is the question.
That would depend on the exceptions. As a best practice, I would say that if you use a lot of variables, we definitely want to understand at what level we want to implement them, right? Now, if we are creating variables or overriding them at the template stack level, right, or creating variables, defining them at the template stack level, we manage all of them over there, right? If we are if we are defining some variables at the template level, then we'll have to go ahead and make changes over there. Now that creates some amount of inconsistency as such from an experience point of view. Over time, we tend to lose track of how and where we are managing these variables. So it is always nice to manage it at one point. So because template stack is where we are associating the configuration with the firewall, template stack should be where we override those values or we monitor those values at least, right? But the variables can be defined at the template level. It doesn't really matter where the variables are defined.
Okay. Let's see here. So the next question we had was from Jeff Walton. Can templates be used to assign allowed? Yes, can templates be used to assign allowed IPs for management interface access so that they are the same across all firewalls in a template stack?
I did not understand that question clearly. Allowed to assign IPs from the management interface? Was that the question?
Okay, I'll read it again. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Can template be used to assign allowed IPs for management interface access so that they are the same across all firewalls in a template stack? Now, if you'd like to, one of the things we can do is we can actually take this question offline too. We will have a section in live community where you can talk about this later if you would like.
Yeah, I can take that. I mean, from what I understand the question, I don't think we can configure allowed IPs for the management interface. So if I go to the network tab over here, we don't really see the management interface over here at all, right? We would actually have to go to the device tab, and here we configure the management interface, right? So permitted IP addresses are all over here. So if we configure the permitted IP addresses, so if you will notice, this is also a template configuration. If we configure the permitted IP addresses over here, whatever is mentioned over here, it will be pushed to the template stack and then to the firewall. You could also define variables over here if you want. So I don't know if I understood and answered the question correctly, but I think this is what the question was looking for.
Okay, yeah. I'll share the link in a little bit for live communities, post-discussion group where we can talk about these afterwards. So sure. We've got two more questions so far. The next one's coming in is there's a way to clone device groups via Panorama CLI by utilizing the load command, but is there a way to exclude devices added to the device group? In this person's case, there is no master device group that contains the config that they need.
No, you cannot exclude the devices from the device group, but you could always remove them once the device groups have been loaded. It's fairly simple. You can just go to the device groups over here and remove them.
Okay.
And CLI exists for this as well. So.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. The last question I have at the moment, the last one was from Anurag. I apologize if I'm getting your name incorrect. This next question then is from Nate. Is there a way to import current config to a template? Essentially, we already have a couple set up, but we want to use templates without doing any override that undoes the current running config.
You can. So we have a feature called load config partial. If I can show you that, operations. Oh, so I can do that only from Panorama. Sorry about that. So here, when I load a config, I could select specific templates alone that I want to import. And once you import them, you just go ahead and add them to the stack that you want. In fact, even stacks are included over here as well. So this is actually, this feature is called load config partial. This allows you to, partially load config. I think from a CLI or an API perspective, this was always there in terms of the XPath. So you could just use the XPath to load the specific configuration that you want to do, right? And you can go ahead and commit. This one is more specific to device group and template. So you can choose, pick and choose which one you want to load.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, this would need a firewall imported. An XML file imported.
Okay. Cool. Nate says, great, thank you. So that's all we have as far as the questions for Shiva here. Shiva, I do want to take a moment and thank you very much. Really appreciate you taking the time today. This has been very informative for me, and obviously we've gotten a lot of good questions out of this. Again, for the people that have asked and whatnot, we will be, this event is recorded. We will get this up in Live Community's YouTube channel in a couple of days. Please be patient with us. We'll get it up there soon, I promise. I'm the one literally doing the video editing, so I will get it for you. I swear I will do so. Once it's up there, enjoy to your heart's content. But yeah, thank you very much, Shiva. Really appreciate it. And I will go ahead and let you go at this point.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.